Big weekend in the ACC in football as the season gets closer and closer to the end, and going towards the postseason with teams vying for bowl opportunities. A couple of teams looking at maybe meeting in the ACC championship game in Charlotte in early December. We already know Florida State's going to be there. Will Louisville join? Virginia facing Louisville tonight as we're recording this. I'm Chris Graham of the Augusta Free Press, and we're going to try to preview focus a lot on the Virginia-Louisville game, but then we'll talk about the others on the schedule as well. Louisville, a 20-point favorite tonight. The number 11 ranked Cardinals coming into the game with a 7-1 record and looking really good this season are the Cardinals. Just that one loss, inexplicable loss when you look back on a 38-21 loss to a not very good Pitt team, but back on track are the Cards since then. And Virginia will go into the game with a question mark at quarterback, at least as far as we know right now. Tony Muskett, the starting quarterback, went down in the first series of the loss on Saturday to Georgia Tech with a high ankle sprain. And Tony Elliott on Monday in his media availability said that that Muskett is day-to-day. Aren't we all, right? As Kenny Mayne would like to say. But with the short week, a little less time, obviously 2 days less time to prepare and also to get treated. So Anthony Calandre, who took over, played the bulk of that game, was 21 of 37 for 200 yards, couple touchdowns, may be in line to get the start, which would be his fourth of the season. The two guys have played pretty comparably in terms of, everything. I mean, the number of snaps, pretty close. Muskett, the starter, for the bulk of the season, 357 snaps, Calandre 292 with 3 starts, and then he played the whole game except for that one series on Saturday. Passing numbers are also comparable. Muskett's 62.7% completion rate to Calandre's 60% completion rate. Calandre has thrown for more yards, 1124 to 1036, also more touchdowns, 7-6, but also then more INTs, 7-5 for Muskett. Their NFL passer ratings virtually identical. Muskett's just a little higher at 82.5 to Calandre's 81.4, but kind of shows you that, Virginia's got a couple of good options at quarterback. Often the saying is if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't really have one. Tony Elliott actually has 2. And Calandre, of course, last week when he played, that was his 5th appearance of the season. That burnt his freshman red shirt. So he's used the year of eligibility. So we'll have to see. It's a game time decision, apparently. I mean, I'm saying apparently because we just don't know. Because the talk with Tony Elliott was on Monday. It's now Thursday. I would imagine at this stage they've long since decided who's going to be the starting quarterback. You have to build a game plan around the particular skill set. Again, the two guys are very similar in numbers, but with a true freshman in Calandre, you might have to do some different things playbook wise than you would with Muskett. That, I mean, one thing I've seen in the numbers when I do the deep dives, teams, of course, with a true freshman are going to want to put more pressure on him to see if he can handle blitzes. He gets blitzed an awful lot more than Muskett does. And so, game plan will have to adjust, but we'll see. Kickoff for that, the TV show starts at 7:30. Kickoff's probably around 7:35 or so. Game is on ESPN, and we'll be covering from the home office and look to AFP for post game. Let's see. So then this weekend schedule is starts on Saturday at noon. Georgia Tech at Clemson. That game is on ABC. Clemson, a 14-point favorite, coming off the obvious big win last week on Saturday over Notre Dame. Kind of a season reclaiming win for Clemson. That Clemson looked to be perhaps on the way to an under 500 record. And obviously, if they'd lost the game, they would have been. And so Clemson, a 14-point favorite in this one with Georgia Tech. I'm not sure about that line. Georgia Tech has been playing really good of late. A 5-4 record coming into the game for Georgia Tech as well. Also at noon on Saturday, Virginia Tech, Boston College. That game on ACC Network. Tech on the road, a 1.5-point favorite. Kind of a surprise to me that the Hokies are a road favorite coming off a 34-3 loss to Louisville last week. 2 o'clock on the CW, NC State at Wake Forest. NC State, a road favorite, 2.5 points. Brennan Armstrong will be starting in that one with MJ Morris. I'm not sure if it's an injury. I just know I saw this week that he's decided to redshirt the rest of the year. He's played 4 games, started 4 games, and State went 3-1 in those 4 starts after taking the job over for Armstrong. And Armstrong will be back in the starting lineup for NC State in this one. So that game, again, at 2 o'clock on the CW on Saturday. We got Miami at Florida State at 3:30. Florida State has already clinched a spot in the ACC championship game, number 4 in the country. Obviously, very much in the mix for a college football playoff berth for the first time in what probably feels like forever. Miami, after being typical Miami, being ranked in the preseason, ranked a good bit of this season, now unranked. Florida State a 14.5 point favorite in this one, but it's a rivalry matchup, so keep that in mind. Pitt at Syracuse in a game that the ACC network is broadcasting and probably doesn't know why. Pitt a 3-point favorite in this one. This is one that you have to be a fan of both schools, one of the other schools, I guess, and even then you might not be watching. And then the day wraps up at 8 o'clock on ACC network with Duke against number 24 North Carolina. Carolina a 14.5 point favorite in this one. Duke has had a good season this year, fallen off a little bit of late with the lingering injury issue for quarterback Riley Leonard. I'm surprised Carolina's a 14.5 point favorite in this one. I don't bet, but if I were betting, I would probably bet Duke in that one. I might Duke not to win the game, but Duke from just a betting standpoint to cover the spread. I probably would bet Miami to cover the spread against Florida State. I think Florida State wins that one, but I'm not sure 14.5 points in that rivalry game. I might take Boston College straight up. I mean, it's a 1.5 point line for Virginia Tech. I kind of like Boston College at home. And Clemson, I would take Georgia Tech, Clemson to win, but Georgia Tech to cover. So Virginia at Louisville, gosh, I'm not a betting person, and I usually eschew even giving betting advice, but I see these lines. Louisville about 20. I think Virginia covers. I mean, Louisville wins and wins pretty handily, but I think Virginia covers. So there you go. Unsolicited advice from a person who admittedly doesn't bet on what to do as far as the Vegas lines. Hey, keep up with us on Augusta Free Press. Again, the post-game coverage tonight of Virginia-Louisville. Scott German will wrap up the weekend for us on Sunday with his updated power rankings going into the last couple weeks of the season. So that's all coming forward on Augusta Free Press. If you have any questions for me, anything for me to look into perhaps, please email me at chris@augustafreepress.com.